Poppets. Welcome to episode 2 of the Poppet Pals review. I'm Derek.
And I'm Katie.
First of all, I guess we should say Happy New Year to all. Happy 2023.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, we're kicking it off right. I guess we should talk about that first. Like we do like horror updates weekly. We kind of talk about our horror experiences or movies we watched or whatever. Katie, do you have anything?
Let's see. So this week, I of course caught up on the movie that we're going to be reviewing today. But I also started the new Stephen King book that just came out, Fairy Tale, which is really good so far. I'm only on page I think 60, but it's so good. So far, so good. So I'm excited to finish that. Well, I'm not excited to finish it. I just I hate when books go too fast, but it's a good one so far.
Yeah, his books are. It seems like his books are always like a slow build. So like I think it'll be a good pace, and especially for you, you read fast. That book would take me 10 years to get through.
I just get so into it, and then I can't stop reading.
Yeah. I'm relying on you to let me know how that is because it sounded really cool.
I will. You need like a book on tape.
Yeah. Can you just read that out loud?
I'll just read it and record it.
That would be great.
That would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. My horror of the week update, whatever we're calling this, is basically the same. I bought some Junji Ito, some Japanese horror books that I'm gonna read. They're like horror comics, manga, whatever you want to call it, but they're scary. I'm having some nightmares right now just looking at the cover, and it's really creepy. So I'm reading, but my books have pictures.
I will say
child,
I have never read any manga, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but I will say the Japanese horror movies that I have watched are terrifying, all of them. So if the books and stuff are the same, I'm sure they're scary.
They are, and they are. So yeah. So we'll be reading up, and we both watched the same movie this past weekend.
Yes.
You had seen this movie before. I have not. It's my first time.
I experienced this one in the theater.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I bet that was even better. You'll have to talk about that because we're gonna do our basic impressions, spoiler free, right now. You can go first and kind of talk about what you thought and what was like in the theater because I was just watching on TV with my dog, under a blanket, all scared, and so you go ahead, kind of give us your thoughts.
Yeah. So I watched it when it first came out in the movie theater, and it was great on the big screen because the one thing I really like about this movie is I do think it has really good, creepy, unsettling moments where not anything's really not even happening, but it just gives you that creepy feeling because you're just expecting something to happen. And the way it's shot with the camera angles and the lighting, it was really cool to see on the big screen. Overall, I know most people did not like this movie. And really? I think if you, just from other reviews I've seen online, I know a lot of people did not like this movie. I enjoyed it because I think it had a lot of different levels to it and a lot of different messages to it. And I sometimes enjoy a movie like that you really have to think about the different layers. And I liked the little sprinkles of comedy in there as well. And this is something we had talked about last week with Halloween. Like, I didn't like these deeper messages and things like that in Halloween because that's already a franchise that's already set up. But with something like Barbarian, where it's a brand new story, it's written for these specific messages and purposes. And I thought it worked really well. Not to mention there are some really big name actors, or not like huge A-list actors, but well-known actors in it that I thought were really good in the roles. So, yeah, overall, my recommendation would be, like, if you like just a mainstream kind of horror movie, it's probably not going to be for you. But if you like something a little more artistic and something you might have to think about a little bit and look through the layers, then I think you'll like it.
Okay. I was wondering, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. Because we didn't talk about this, and I thought we were going to have, like, different opinions, or I thought we were going to say something
I purposely
different.
did not discuss this movie with you because
I'm
wanted
glad.
this to be the first time we discussed it.
Yes, that was smart. That
and
was
it was
smart
killing
because
me.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Because this movie is not for everyone, and it does have some layers to it. It is it kind of blasted in your face all these expectations of what's going to happen, because if you watched a bunch of horror movies, you expect certain things to happen, certain beats, and this movie throws the book out the window and it does its own thing. And there's a huge tonal shift I wrote it down, about 43 minutes in. we have this this huge shift, and everything you expect to happen doesn't, and it's one of the most unpredictable movies I've seen, and and with the comedic the comedic beats that you were talking about are definitely in there. So if you like more of I would say like a Sam Raimi kind of feel in some parts of these movies, and then other parts of these movies have a feel of more like, I don't know, like give me an example of somebody who's like does like a deeper thought, deeper.
I mean,
I don't know, like deeper thought, like societal perspectives,
like a Jordan Peele type
some
movie.
Deep messages.
To touch on one of the things you said too, I think if you watch the trailer for this movie, they do a really good job of leading you to believe this movie is about one thing, and it takes like a total left turn. And so the trailer is just completely like bonkers and completely hides a lot of the things about this movie that I like.
I didn't even watch the trailer. So did the trailer make this look?
Did you not?
No, I tried to go in blank.
Oh, yeah.
Like completely
okay, so
blank.
from the trailer, you're really going to just be like, okay, yeah, so two people rent the same house.
Yes.
One of them's totally a creeper.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
like very dark, almost like a hostage type.
Yes.
I thought it was probably going to be like Hostel or something, like. And
I guess that should take us into our spoiler section. So if you think this movie is for you, go watch it now and come back.
Yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled, pause and come back. But make sure you come back.
We have a lot to say. Good stuff here. Of course, spoiler alert again. But I think this movie, I started taking really good notes until that tonal twist happened. Then I threw them all away. But the beginning is so believable. I feel like you've rented Airbnb. I've done Airbnb. Like I could totally see the scenario of renting a place. Having that issue with that build up where she can't find the key. She can't get in. She's in this sketchy place in the dark. Like you're waiting on something to happen there. And then, when she finally does get in, it's rented out to another person as well who booked it on a different website. I was like, that's totally believable. Like that could happen. Like we're going to
that could legitimately happen.
We're trying to book an Airbnb now. I'm kind of afraid that'll happen to us. Like when we all go. But
we're not gonna worry about the other person we can see in the house. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna check for little back doors.
Yeah. We know now. We know what to prepare for. But yeah. I mean, immediately when you see, I can't say his name, Pennywise.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Immediately see him, I was like, okay, see where this is going, because he comes off as like a Norman Bates to me at first. Like he's charming, but like I'm like,
but he is pushy.
He's very pushy.
He's very pushy.
Yes, and it's comedic what he does when she goes into the house, and he literally pulls out every kind of drink, and he's like, "Can I go make you some tea out of your line of sight? How about some wine? How about some Fanta, Coke?" Like, it's almost comedic him trying to do that.
He's pretty pushy about her staying too, because she initially says, "Well, I'm just gonna leave," which who wouldn't?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I would probably, I would probably, if I was, be her, I would do the same thing. I would be like, of course they dropped that thing about, oh, there's a medical convention, you're not gonna find a hotel in Detroit, the location of this,
right? And then at this point, I was a little bit like, okay, hold on. They're trying a little too hard at this point to make him look sus and like...
Yes.
Because first it's like, oh, you can't leave because it's a dangerous neighborhood. Oh, you're not going to find another hotel because there's a convention. It's all booked. Which, weren't they in like... were they in Detroit?
Yes, it's a neighborhood.
They were in a very big city. Like, I mean, come on. It's like there's going to be a hotel probably available.
Yes.
But and then he's like starts with the tea, and he goes and gets her bags for her, and I think that was, and she even says, I think he brings up like, oh, I get why you didn't want to drink your tea. I get why I'm gonna open the wine in front of you, which really starts to form, I think, the whole theme that you see throughout this of like how women are treated sometimes in society, both back in time and now.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say, and and it's so like, I don't know, it's so deep to think about, like everything that's going through Tess's mind as this is happening, because she's like a very modern, capable, smart person. Like she like checks his wallet as soon as she finds it. She's always suspicious and watching him. Like, like she comes off as somebody who can handle herself, and like that just seems like such the modern a modern lady, like
it's the modern norm. Like, and I thought that would be another interesting thing with a discussion, you being male and me being female.
Yes.
Like, how many times have you thought of these things just when you're out in public? Like, have you ever found yourself just like out in Target and like checking your surroundings, or like when you're walking to your car or anything like that? And for me, like, that's a reality.
Yes.
Like, that wasn't even just for the movie. Like, I have found myself, like, if I'm walking to my car, like, holding a key, like, between my fingers just in case. Or if there's a guy that I've been seeing, like, pop up in some of the same aisles as me, you better believe he's on my radar,
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting to bring up. I mean, I'm sure, like, what goes through your mind has to be different than what goes through my mind. But I feel some of the similarities though, because I'm not a Dwayne the Rock Johnson type. Like, if I walk down a dark alley, I don't think I'd make it out. I'd probably not do well. So I those thoughts run through my mind. But this movie kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Like,
not in like general places.
Yeah, like
dark alley. Like, anybody's gonna be like, oh, this is sketchy. But like, just in a general situation.
Yeah, and I kind of reversed it in my head. I was like, what if I was Tess and I opened the door and it was this pretty girl like, come stay, whatever. Like, and she's like, oh, have some wine. I brought it. Oh, why? Thank you. Like, it's amazing how gender roles can be swapped and you'd have a totally different perspective, like totally different. I don't know, like it was an eye-opener.
It'd be totally different.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, in a normal situation, if like this really were to happen, I think that was Tessa's fatal flaw of this entire movie, was wanting to like give people the benefit of the doubt and then wanting to save people.
Yes.
Because in a general situation, if this happened in real life, no way in hell would I don't think I wouldn't go even enter that house. I'd be like, no, I'm going to go back and get my car and drive into the city. Like, I'm not going to stay here with someone I don't know. I'm not going to, like, that's crazy. Like, there's no way. But I think, you know, obviously for the story in the movie to progress.
Right.
She did give him the benefit of the doubt, which ended up being kind of just her fatal flaw throughout the entire movie, because there is so many times she could have just escaped and left.
Yes.
But she wanted that...
Keeps going back.
Sense of like to help. She wanted to help the person, to save the person, which also really complements the theme of a mother in the movie.
Yes.
Which we'll get to the mother.
Yes.
But yeah, so she's mirroring the character of the mother as well, I think, in that sense.
And we'll go into it. The second character, the Justin Long character, is the mirror of to a lesser degree, but still to a degree, of the other monster of this film,
Frank.
Yeah.
But going back to that with Bill Skarsgård too, when he's talking about like the neighborhood and everything like that, it kind of made me seem like I was still on the right track in thinking of what this movie was going to be, when he just so happened to be kind of in the same line of work, or like the same subject matter of what she was even there for in the first place. I was like, oh, that's another coincidence. Like, that's weird. Like, it all seemed like kind of a setup to get her into this specific place and house in this weird neighborhood.
The wheels start turning. You're like, he's Googled her. He's like known she was coming.
He's Googled her.
He's looked up
They're
everything.
trapping her. Yeah. She is taken.
Yeah, taken. Yeah.
Yes.
But no, like, it's just amazing. He was just a nice guy. He was just a normal, like a super nice guy.
Well, I wouldn't say. I mean, yes, he was a nice guy, but he had his flaws
creepy
as well.
At times, yeah.
He was kind of pushy at times. When she's like trying to leave because she found the basement labyrinth area, and she's like, no, we need to just go, like, we need to leave, but he doesn't listen to her, and he's like, oh, like, he didn't say this, but his tone from a woman's perspective felt like, oh, you're having kind of a emotional woman freak out. I'm sure it's nothing. I'm gonna go check it. Like,
yeah, he was kind of like talking down to her in a way. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he totally was. Totally was.
Well, of course, we know what happened, because that's what happened to him.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
But just before we stray into, because this movie is very sectioned, obviously. Like, it feels very much like almost like three different people directed the three different tones of the movie. But not in a bad way. Like, it didn't feel disjointed. It was this weird, really awesome, quirky,
which is our kind of film
theme.
This is our kind of film.
Yes. But I did like the tone of the first part with Keith and
There's
Tess.
so much tension.
His name was Keith, right? Yeah, there's so much tension. It's all very dark.
You're just waiting.
And that's the part where I was talking about, where like you'll see a shot of just down an empty hallway, and you're just waiting for like something to happen, some kind of jump scare, and it doesn't come, and that feeling of just the possibility of it coming is way worse to me than an actual jump scare.
And when her door was like open, when like the first night her door is open, of course we find out why
creepy.
later, but like that kind of sets your mind off. And
right.
He has this little night terror thing, which he kind of like jumps down her throat, like, for checking on him. Like,
I thought that was kind of weird too, because they never really explain or go into like why he's getting night terrors, and then in the morning he's just like completely okay again, which I guess is just
like,
another like throw off of, oh, this guy's probably not a good guy. Like he jumped so quickly on her, and then he's just like, oh, just kidding, we're all good. Like, don't leave.
And then what lured her downstairs? Was she just? I kind of. I don't know what happened in that part, but
let me think. Okay, so she gets home
like the
from
job interview.
her job interview, yeah, and she comes inside. What did she go downstairs for?
Oh gosh, we just watched this.
I think she was looking for something, right? I know, I just watched it yesterday. She came downstairs. I want to say she was looking for something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
She's looking around on the shelves and stuff, and that's when she finds the rope to open the hidden door. But I don't remember what she was looking for.
I don't either, or if she was just going down there for safety to, get away from. I don't
remember now. Yeah, I'll have to look back and see why she went down there.
Rope.
But it wasn't really relevant to the story other than her finding the rope.
Finds this rope, opens this passage, and she's still on guard. She's a smart protagonist, and she looks at it, she's like, nope, and she does the thing with the mirror to like look down there.
Which was so smart. Can I just say that was so smart? I don't know if I would have thought of that.
I would have either. I would have just ran.
It shows how smart. I love it because I think it shows really how smart Tess is, and none of these guys, like, she's clearly the smartest person in this movie, and none of the guys are listening to her.
Yeah, and just kind of, it's just such a contrast to our pathetic man child we get in a few minutes, like who's totally helpless, and
poor Justin.
But she does that.
Yeah.
But then she goes in anyway. That kind of surprised me. I was like, she's not going to go in there, and she does, and she finds the room.
Well, I think it goes to that little her fatal flaw of well, I gotta go see. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Make sure it's okay. I gotta go.
Whatever. That I'm safe. Yeah.
But yeah, when she sees that room. When she walks in that room and you see what it is, my heart just dropped into my stomach because I was like, oh, this just got really dark.
Yeah, I was like, this is it. And she's trapped. She's getting locked in there.
She's trapped.
She's
trapped. Liam Neeson is not coming for you.
When I saw the bucket, I was like, oh no, not a bucket.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, and then there's the bloody handprint.
Yeah. I was like, he's going to appear behind her.
And at this point, I'm like, it's Pennywise.
Yeah,
it's Pennywise.
I was like, he's going to appear behind her and shut her in.
They all float down here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, verbatim.
I was just waiting for it. Yeah.
I was like, he's going to appear in the shadows and be like, well, you found my lair, eh?
Because he was being so over the top creepy. When she walks out of her bedroom when she's getting cleaned up and everything and waiting on her sheets to be done washing, and he's just sitting there with the wine bottle and two glasses and this just blank look on his face. I was like, oh my goodness. I was even thinking is he a vampire or what is going on here?
Do you remember the part where he's folding her sheets or showing her oh, do sheets this way?
Oh
or
my
whatever.
God, yeah, that was an example of the kind of weird comedy that it's not funny, but it is funny at the same time.
Well, yeah, I thought.
And side note, does that work with the sheets? Because...
I don't know. It was funny to watch, but at the same time, I was terrified. I was like, he's gonna throw the sheet over her face and drag her downstairs.
I know. It's oh, she's gonna smother her in the bed sheets. Yep.
It was terrifying.
But yeah. So then of course we do find out I was shocked that Skarsgård, Pennywise, whatever you want to call him, in this he didn't last that
I know
long.
It was such
I was shocked
a psycho moment where you kill somebody off.
From the trailer, you're like, oh, this is totally gonna be a him versus her. There's a movie, I can't remember what it's called, but it's where a blind woman is in a cabin, and there's this man outside just like stalking her basically the whole time and scaring her all night and trying to break in to kill her. And it's just like a him versus her this entire time. And that's what I thought this was going to turn into based on the trailer and the entire first half
I
of the
saw
movie.
a movie like that too, but it was a different movie.
Maybe it was the same movie. maybe
That's crazy.
Maybe I think there's a lot of movies with that scenario, but
I was shocked.
But yeah.
When I was like, what is going on?
When he died, I was like, oh, okay. I did not expect like this Hills Have Eyes monster to come running out of the shadows and curb stomp him. Like...
I wrote that down. It's like 42 minutes in, Keith head smashed by Gollum creature is what I wrote.
Like, I literally... Gollum creature. Like, and it's really, honestly, like, that's why I really enjoyed dark comedy sometimes, is because it was not a funny moment. Like, it was not meant to be a funny moment, but... the vision of this naked woman,
outrageous,
like lady bits flopping around in the wind, just flying at him. I giggled for a second.
I did too. It was darkly hilarious because your mind is
exactly, and that's how all the comedy is in this movie. You're like, I shouldn't be laughing at this moment, but that was kind of funny.
Like... again, it's like this. The director, writer, he went out of the way to make sure like nothing is as you expect it to be. Like no,
it was so out of left field.
So well. But then that's our tonal shift, and then boom.
Which is even more out of left field.
Justin Long jamming.
Justin Long driving down
singing
the road,
jamming. And I just giggled at that too, because he's just in his like that horrific moment, and he's just singing along, like carefree in the world.
And can you imagine, like when I first saw this in the movie theater, not knowing Justin Long was even in this movie, and that scene pops up, I was like, what is this? Like, what is going on?
I knew he was in it, but I was just delighted to see him, like, just jamming along in this car. I was like, yeah, there he is. There's our guy. Because I love him in horror movies. But
I will say, in that moment, I was like, just the feel of the scene in general, I was like, oh my gosh, did they keep this a secret, and is Barbarian connected to Tusk?
Oh, wow.
Because for some reason, it had that same kind of feel to it for me. Or like, what's the other one that's in the Tusk?
The trilogy?
Universe.
The Hosers.
Yoga Hosers. Yeah, it felt like that feel. And I was like, is this part of that? And I didn't realize it, and they kept it secret, which it's not. It would have been kind of cool if it was, but it's not. But for me, it had that same kind of tone to it.
Yeah, I agree. That sort of comedic vibe and like just goofy, crazy, just weirdness. That's just fun. And I agree. And like, there was such like think about the tonal difference of how we meet Tess versus how we meet, what's Justin Long's character's name again? AJ. Yeah.
AJ.
How we meet AJ. AJ is like carefree, jamming in his car, and we meet Tess. She's like in this dark, awful place, like on guard, on edge, like there's just.
AJ is like
complete.
The epitome of the stereotypical white middle-aged male, privileged. Like, he's all of that wrapped up into one little bundle.
Yes. And, oh gosh. Well, I mean, we'll get into it. He's so helpless, and it all makes sense too. But they immediately go into his story. He's an actor, some comedy sitcom, and he's now off his show because there's accusations that he assaulted and took advantage of his co-star. And it's like, well, you're like, dude, do we believe this guy? Like, because he's like, I didn't do that. Like, it goes into a long time of him defending himself, but it's like the lady or the man doth protest too much there, because he's so on the defensive, which I guess you would be, like, if even if it's true or not true, but like, I don't know.
Well, I think that's another level of the commentary too, with like the whole Me Too movement, and this woman is coming out and saying, hey, he did this, and his point of view of the event is so ridiculously different and nonchalant compared to what hers is. So I think that was a whole nother, like, obviously it touches on the feminist point of view too, but it also has this message of something that's like very real going on in the world right now too.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. There's so many. This movie is an onion, and you're just peeling back layers.
That leads us into the last half of the movie where he does get home.
Yes. And
realizes, oh hey, there's people's stuff in my house.
Yes.
So so he does start going through all this stuff, and you mentioned, and I didn't want to like talk about this until we got on here, but you were like, oh, he found that Jane Eyre book. Was that like an Easter egg or whatever?
In my mind, he read that in one of his other movies or something, but I was like,
he could have.
It wasn't. I looked it up.
It was an Easter egg for this movie, because if you've read Jane Eyre, there is a kind of like side plot where there's a husband that keeps his wife captive in either the attic or the basement. I think of the attic. And Jane Eyre sees her and thinks she's a ghost or like this monster or whatever. Yes. So it's kind of honestly just reflecting this movie itself.
And what, could have been like a foreshadow or anything. And what does he do? Yeah. What does he do? He just tosses it aside.
Tosses it aside,
and then he picks up her laptop, types in, makes one attempt to guess her password. One attempt. And throws it. He's like, oh, I'm done. But
like, that's how like ridiculous his character is, that like if someone's car and all their belongings were left somewhere, I would immediately be like, hey, like, I think these people are missing, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I
he does
like,
call.
These people friggin' left their stuff in my
call.
house.
Yeah, he does call.
He calls, but he's like irritated that they like junked up his house.
Yeah, it's not even that. He doesn't care. He's just like, their stuff's here. Like, he's just agitated.
Their stuff's here. They left their stuff. Where are they?
Yeah, he does not give a crap. He does not give a crap.
No, but I think this was honestly the funniest part of the movie.
I know what you're gonna say.
Justin Long, like,
yep.
He finds the stairs because Tess has left the stairwell the door propped open with a chair. So he goes down there. He finds the secret hallway. He finds like the little room with the nasty bed and video camera and stuff.
Yep.
And you're like, he's like, oh crap, like on his face looks like he's having this like, oh crap, this is a bad moment.
It fools you.
And then next thing you know, he's pulling out a measuring tape, and he's like, can I add this to my square footage? Like, it was just like, it was one of those situations where it's like, this is not funny, but this is funny.
Yeah, it was funny. He immediately goes to the computer and looks that up. And he's like, oh, hell yeah, I can.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
so then he's like comedically going down the tunnel, measuring as far as the tape will go, and then like just backing it on up.
Yeah, it's so funny. And it really, if it didn't hammer it home before, this movie, like, that hammered it home when he was doing that. I was like, okay, male character totally oblivious to all dangers in this terrible place.
Like, this room is clearly a crime scene. And you're like, oh yeah, extra square footage.
Yeah, like, just excited, carefree.
And Keith, Bill Skarsgård character did that a little bit too, because when she's like, no, this was a crime scene. Like, there's a mattress and a camera and a bucket, and he's like, it's a basement. There's buckets in it. Like,
yeah, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, that's,
but yeah,
he doesn't.
Of course, the mother comes out, chases him. He finds Tess. They fall in a hole. Well, Tess is already in the hole.
Oh yes. But, she tries to warn him,
and that's where this like mothering theme comes in. Like the monster, the mother, she is just trying to take care of her children per se and feed them the bottle, and he doesn't accept it. So this was the part I thought was really interesting, is when she gets mad that he won't accept her bottle, and drags him out of the hole, and she takes him into the room with like the scene in the movie that most people had an issue with that saw this movie. But if you think about it, it was just a complete mirror of the story that he did to the girl. He was yelling, no. He said, I don't want this. And she forced it upon him, and I was like, instant karma, sir.
And I think that's why it didn't bother me, because in my mind I was like, justice.
But it was literally the exact same scenario that he repeated to his friend that he did to the girl. Exact same scenario, except the tides were turned. I dark sense of humor here, but I found it darkly hilarious. I was like, not okay now, is it, buddy? Like, not so good now when it's you. Like, totally got his comeuppance. It's like, oh, I know you said no, but
and it's another example of, a male character not listening to Tess, because if he just would have taken the damn bottle and listened to her.
Oh my god. Everybody in this movie would have lived if just like anyone had listened to Tess at any point.
Yeah. But, hopes for Tess, like she's like, that's when she makes her escape, right? Like she gets her,
but then
out.
Her fatal flaw is she's like, oh, I have to save AJ. He's still down there, even though she doesn't know him at all.
Yeah, she
and
just cares.
Even
motherly.
Andre is like, no, don't worry about him. You need to leave and don't come back.
And then what's his name again? The guy that helps her. Andre. Yes. He's like, there are worse things down there than her. In my mind, I was like,
I know. I was like, ooh.
I was like, well, we go into the flashback and stuff, but in my mind, I was like, is he also referring to AJ? Like, is that kind of like saying something about him?
That's the other broader, I think, theme of this whole movie is just the question of who really is the barbarian. Is
exactly.
It the obvious monster, or is it this seemingly normal dude, or is it the kind of quiet guy, or is it society in general because this neighborhood has gone to shambles, and like there's so many layers to it. I think the entire movie is just a question of who in society is really the monster.
In my mind, well, if we're giving an opinion on this, it's not the mother. For sure, in my mind, it is.
She's a victim of her circumstance.
Yeah, it's Frank in my mind. Like, Frank and AJ both too.
I mean, I think it's on some level, it's all of the men in this movie to a degree. I
can't blame the mother for.
And then I think Tess is her own worst enemy, because if she hadn't continuously tried to save these people who were not taking her into consideration, then she would have been gone before any of this even happened.
I know, it's like that, just like the motherly mirror there, like her wanting to, be that figure and just be caring, like just kind of a dark thing to say. Like, if you're caring in a dark world, like you get into trouble. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a message there with that, but
Tess does get out, but then of course she does end up coming back for AJ, and
after the cop
she
scene,
does end up getting him as well, which AJ shoots her, which is crazy, but that was like a little bit forgivable, I guess, because if he didn't realize she was gonna be there, like in his head she's still in probably that hole in the ground, he probably thought it was the mother and shot. So that's a little bit forgivable, but in that moment, you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, she came back to help you, and you shoot her.
Oh, that reminds me. I'll try to point out all the times how helpless he is, but he brought. I think didn't he bring a knife?
Like the entire movie.
Yeah, the whole entire movie. But didn't he?
He brought a knife to a
dropped
gunfight.
it.
No.
He dropped the knife down there.
He left his car keys in the basement.
We didn't talk about the flashback. We didn't talk about the flashback.
Oh yes, yeah, the flashback. I mean, that's where the whole
we meet Frank
situation is comes to light.
Yeah.
Frank. I mean, Frank is a monster for sure. He's the biggest monster down there, and I think that is what Andre was referring to. Was Frank.
I do too. And when you see him like going into that store and buying what he's buying, like you start piecing it together in your head what's happening. Like in my mind, just
like, oh god,
like I feel icky and disgusted. Like as I was watching him shop.
It was very dark. It was honestly a very dark movie.
Yes.
But
how many generations did that take?
Okay, this was the problem I had with the movie, right?
Mine too.
So
that took some time.
It had to have been in the 80s. The flashback had to have been in the 80s, I would think, right?
It almost looked like earlier that I didn't really pay attention. I first thought it was 80s.
Well, because I was like listening to the music that was on the radio, and I was listening to like the type of cars that were being driven around, and it felt like late 70s, early 80s.
Maybe it was 70s. I don't know. It could have been like the neighborhood vibe. The neighborhood vibe seemed like 60s almost, like the picturesque look.
Like it was not super clear on what time frame it was, but the music, I don't remember what song it was now, but the rock music that was playing on the radio in his car,
may have been 70s,
led me to believe it was like
80s.
Late 70s, early 80s, but I could be wrong. They never really make it super clear what time frame it was, but
he's probably been doing it for longer than that, though. I mean, definitely been doing it for
for
longer.
Sure. But and then when Justin Long finds Frank in the basement, and he's got all those videotapes of like every single woman that he is abducted. But to get to because Andre says when okay, well, backing up. So Justin Long and Tessa, Georgina Campbell's character, they get out of it. Andre saves them. He takes them back to his little place he stays in, and he says, "Oh, Frank's been, having babies with the women, and then babies with those babies, and babies with those babies." And I'm like, okay.
Well, yeah.
On a timeline here,
wait a minute.
Exactly how many babies does it take to get to the kind of being that the mother is, like, and does that make sense in the amount of time frame that we're given in the movie, and where are all the rest of them?
Yes, unless mother killed them all, which I guess
that's the thing. Obviously I think we don't see what AJ sees on the videotape that he plays, but like, I presumed that he was murdering someone.
Yeah.
I presume all the women that were initially taken were murdered. But what happened to all the babies? If there were that many babies, like what happened to them? That's what I didn't like, is it didn't really make sense, because it did seem like the mother was the only thing down there with Frank.
Yeah. I think like you have to like suspend your disbelief a little bit there.
You do, yeah.
And just
because I started thinking about it too much, and I was like, well, wait, if it was like the early 80s, and we're saying this is taking place in modern day, like that's about 40 years, give or take, but which is a long time, but still, like, how many cycles of reproduction do you have to go through to get like a Hills Have Eyes type of situation?
I just think like it was an overall like message, like an overall like
just
representation
like,
of
don't think about it too hard.
Horrible acts. Yeah,
don't
you
think
can't
about it too difficultly.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. Like, it doesn't, like, this movie isn't relying on lore.
It doesn't ruin the movie for me. This was just me, like, really
thinking.
Like nitpicking and picking apart.
Because that's our job. That's why we're here.
But yeah. So then that brings us to the end, because we're kind of running short on time. But
she's shot.
The ending.
AJ's helping her.
You think that AJ's kind of seen the light and needs to like work with her and listen to her.
And like get to the water tower.
Feels empathy for her. I think he finally feels empathy that he shot her.
And he goes into that speech at the water tower.
Yeah. Oh my god, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he's like all I forgot what all he said, but he was like,
it's the only way. It's the only way. She'll kill us both.
Well,
you need to distract her.
Well, I was just thinking about like the speech he was making, like all the things I've done, the things I've, just kind of.
Right. It's all about him.
It's like it almost makes you think like, wow, maybe this guy, maybe we've seen a character arc. Maybe he's gonna somehow redeem himself here.
Gives you a little bit of hope for his character, yeah.
Yeah, and
even though you spend pretty much the entire movie not liking him.
Yeah, and of course, I forgot this guy's name like 10 times. Arthur, the other guy.
AJ.
No.
Oh, Andre.
Yeah. Again, doesn't listen to Tess, and he's like, "We're fine. She'll never get in." Bam.
That was another scene that was like funny but not funny because he's like, "She's not been in here in 15 years. We're fine. We can wait till morning." 2 seconds later, his arms are being ripped off and thrown across the.
Yeah, that was such a Sam Raimi kill and moment. I loved it. I love Evil Dead with a passion, so I thought that was great.
And again, it was like if you had just listened to Tess, she was like, "No, let's not wait till morning. Let's go now."
Just another example. And of course, they get to the top of the water tower, and you were about to say what happens. Like, good old AJ, like.
AJ just pushes Tess right over the side to save himself. He's like, "You're gonna distract the mother."
He's like, "You'll slow her down." Here you go.
Yeah. I mean, and his plan worked initially because the mother just dives right off that water tower like Gollum diving into the depths of Mount Doom after his precious.
Yes, I laughed hysterically.
Just went right on over.
It's kind of the way it was shot was comedic, very comedic.
I think it was meant to be. Yeah, I totally think they meant it to be a little bit.
But
comedic.
It was also like, oh, this mother is going to save her child.
But that's when that's when it makes the switch for you, where you're like, oh my gosh, like this isn't the monster of the movie.
Yeah,
like, she is trying to protect Tess. She's trying to save her from dying. She takes the fall for her.
Yeah,
she
literally,
catches her and and then she protects her ultimately against AJ too when AJ comes down, and he's once again the same way he did with calling that girl and leaving a voicemail, trying to make it seem like not such a big deal.
Oh, you're alive.
I had to do it. I had to do it. You know I had to do it.
You understand, right?
You understand.
Yeah. He's learned nothing. Nothing. He's the same person.
And his eyeballs get gouged out by the mother, which was
mother not dead.
Again, I think an instant karma.
Which was it was like a wink wink at the audience. A, he got his comeuppance, and then B, he got the same thing as in Jeepers Creepers. It was just like a wink.
Treatment. Yeah.
I was like, of course she went for his eyes.
Justin Long will forever get his eyeballs stolen, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was darkly funny because I really hated him at that point. So it was hilarious. But then, and then it makes you feel kind of weird because, the mother wants to take her back and she's like, I can't go back, and then has to shoot her.
Yeah.
But
and I think the mother understands that she's that hurt that she can't move, and she wants to make it better.
Yeah.
And then I think the mother knows she's making the ultimate sacrifice for her child.
Yeah.
Which is honestly it was kind of a sad moment, honestly.
It was. She's one of the mother is honestly probably the
best person in this movie. Yeah,
the second best person in the movie. It's kind of weird.
I mean, well, and I think that's the point, what looks like the monster on the outside, not necessarily monsters can be all over the place,
Yeah, that's the
hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't stereotype. Nobody was who they seemed.
Except maybe AJ
and Frank,
because he just kind of seemed like the douchiest of douchey people. from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, which was good. We needed a good contrast to test, and I think it worked really
He
well.
was the ultimate villain of the movie, besides Frank, of course.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
Frank, obviously a monster. He was the villain of the backstory of the movie, but then AJ was his counterpart for the present.
yep. And it ends with your the most appropriate song ever.
I loved it. I loved the music in this movie altogether. Like, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah. Be my little baby. Yep.
Be my baby. Be my little baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was so great. It ended just right. Ended on just the right note. It didn't need like a cut scene of like, you know, a post credit scene of the mother getting back up or anything like that. It was perfect.
Just Tess walking away, finally taking charge, doing what she should have done in the first place, and like doing what she thought was right.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect. Ended just right. Like it couldn't have been better. Like I don't know. You were saying people hated this movie, and I'm just kind of shocked.
From what I've seen, it doesn't have like the best rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and other reviews I've seen of it, people just didn't like it. Like after I watched it, I just, I'll see posts on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and people all in the comments are like, "This movie is awful. Like, I hated this movie. It's stupid." But I think it's not mainstream horror. It doesn't follow the typical horror tropes, and so
Yeah,
it stirs you a lot of really out of the blue different things. And I think that if you're just not a fan of that kind of thing, if you're expecting just a sit down scary movie, you're not gonna like it. So I think that's maybe why a lot of people didn't like it.
I'll hit you with some numbers here. The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes 92% positive.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's the critics. Yeah.
The audience score is 71%. So that's lower.
Okay, that's better than I thought it was.
Yeah,
that is better than I actually thought it was. I usually look. I don't usually look that stuff up. I let you do that for me.
Oh yeah, I'm a numbers guy. I like my numbers.
But I do see comments on social media, and what I personally saw on social media, people weren't giving it a very good like recommendation, and the person I actually went and saw it with at the theater didn't really like it either.
Yeah, and what did they say? Did they say why?
They just thought it was weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to I like weird things that aren't the norm. So
that's true. Yeah. That's true. And
the overall thought was it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and it was weird.
And it wasn't scary.
Weird, yeah.
I will say that, like, the beginning, creepy. There's a lot of tension built up.
There were some creepy feeling. Yeah, it was creepy, not scary. It was creepy, not scary.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with. I don't think a horror movie, if necessarily, has to be scary.
It doesn't. And the beginning, I felt the tension and that everything building, and then the second half I felt more horrified, like seeing everything that Frank had done, and all that was more horrific than the monster and everything.
Each part of the movie had its totally own tone, totally own everything.
Yes.
But it wasn't like they just glued 3 different movies together. Like,
Agreed.
I thought it still made sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It totally did a good job, and it brought a great message home. And I think that's why critics probably loved it, because it was non-traditional. And it had some deeper layers, and it's a movie that had a lot to say. And it didn't follow the formula, and I appreciate that. And I
think if you don't follow the horror formula, you're either gonna totally crash and burn, or you're gonna have a really good movie. And I thought this was a really good movie.
Me too. And I hope there's not a sequel. I don't need a sequel. I don't need a prequel.
I think it could just be a standalone. Let it speak for itself.
Yes, I hope this Zach, if you're out there and listening, Zach Krieger, just do another. I hope you just do another film,
Something similar.
Similar. No sequel needed here, sir. Great job. But I think that pretty much wraps up Barbarian.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So that's it for now. If you like this podcast, please keep listening. And the Poppet Pals are officially on buymeacoffee.com. We love coffee, and if you love us, buy us a coffee. We'd appreciate it.
I live on coffee now.
Yeah.
But we're also on Instagram, TikTok, all the things, so you can always follow along with us on there too.
Yes. Follow us and get previews for our next episode. We're doing weekly picks now, weekly reviews, and we didn't say this at the beginning, but our system is we're kind of alternating each week. This was a Katie Poppet pick.
This was my pick.
And it was a great one. My pick will be next week. Tune in to see what that is on our social media.
If you want any little clues, you can always, like I said, follow us on Instagram because we post them.
Yes, we are active. Yes, we are updated.
We are active.
Yes, we are live. So tune in next week for my pick, and follow us and stay updated. And hope everyone has a good start to their new year, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, enjoy Barbarian. Bye.